Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Razitz, and I'm the Vice President, Director of Engineering for Ohio Concrete. Also with me is Mr. Joel Riter, Ohio Concrete's Government Affairs Liaison. We welcome you to today's webinar, Introduction to Ohio Concrete Government Affairs, where we will discuss what our lobbyists do for our industry, some current policy issues in play, what PACs are and what they do, and how you can get involved politically at the local level. This is our standard disclaimer used for our webinar programs. We're using and citing sources that are applicable to the subject matter. Note, however, that there are limitations and judgments that need to be applied when using information presented in this program. This presentation will discuss a variety of topics, including what lobbyists do for Ohio Concrete and its members, what policies our lobbyists are currently working on, and a conversation with State Senator Rob McColley. Our presenter today is Mr. Joel Riter. He is partner at Clark Fork Group, LLC, a public affairs and political consulting firm. He serves as the Government Affairs Liaison for Ohio Concrete, advocating for the organization before the Ohio legislature and executive branch agencies. Prior to joining Clark Fork, Mr. Riter worked for State Treasurer Josh Mandel and as an aide in the Ohio House of Representatives and the Senate. Take it away, Joel.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you for everyone who's joined us today. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Joel Riter, and along with Tom Norris, we are the Government Affairs Advisors to Ohio Concrete. Together, we advise the association and its members on state policy and political matters. Today, we will discuss some of the policy issues facing Ohio's concrete industry, Ohio Concrete's Political Action Committee, and ways for Ohio Concrete members to increase their political involvement. We are also honored to have State Senator Rob McColley join us for a discussion about the State House. So one of the first questions that I often get when talking to members for the first time is what is the day-to-day of working on behalf of Ohio Concrete? My primary role as a lobbyist for Ohio Concrete is to advocate for the industry and represent its interests before policymakers, not only elected leaders, but also to appointed and professional staff in the Ohio legislature and executive branch. It is also our responsibility to monitor legislative proposals and evaluate their impact on the concrete industry. Additionally, we proactively seek out opportunities to advance policies that will strengthen the industry. We are working on a daily basis to build relationships between the industry and Ohio's state elected leaders. Part of this relationship building is introducing elected officials to the many unique aspects of our industry and helping them understand why a strong concrete industry is vital to a strong economy. Finally, we serve as political advisors to Ohio Concrete PAC. I'll be discussing the PAC in more detail in a few minutes. Here are some of the current policy issues that we're currently working on at the State House. First up is workforce development. Workforce development is an ongoing issue across the construction industry, especially when it comes to qualified drivers. A major worker shortage impacting not just concrete, but also the trucking industry as a whole. We are working with the legislature on policy proposals aimed at increasing the pool of qualified drivers, including tax credits for employers to provide their own training options. Earlier this year, Ohio Concrete joined the Fix Our Roads Ohio Coalition, which was formed to advocate for the motor fuels tax increase that was passed as part of the transportation budget. Following that success, we remain a member of the coalition and will be working with them on future initiatives. These include a long-term solution for highway funding and initiatives to promote construction zone safety. As with any business organization, we are always tracking legislation that will impact your tax rates. Thankfully, Ohio has elected leaders committed to tax relief for business owners and understand the burden high tax rates have on economic growth and job creation. Next up is a national initiative which we are part of and that is Build with Strength. Build with Strength is a project of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association to promote the benefits of building with concrete as a strong, sustainable material. In Ohio, we are working to build coalition partners for future outreach to policymakers. Many states are in the middle of fights that aim to weaken building codes at the expense of concrete. While nothing major is occurring right now in Ohio, our work is aimed at being prepared for any fights that could spring up in the future. Finally, we also continue to engage the Ohio Department of Transportation on opportunities to increase the use of concrete in heavy highway projects. Along with heavy highway projects, we are in support of efforts to replace and modernize Ohio's aging infrastructure. Now turning to the political involvement of Ohio Concrete members, one of the most important things you can do is support Ohio Concrete PAC. The PAC in Ohio Concrete PAC stands for Political Action Committee, which is an entity formed for the purpose of supporting candidates for office. As a state PAC, Ohio Concrete PAC is regulated by the Ohio Secretary of State, and all of the PAC's financial activity is publicly reported to that office. Also of note, the PAC is fully funded through voluntary contributions from Ohio Concrete members, and all donations are used to support candidates for elected office. The PAC is funded, as you'll see from the slide, by voluntary contributions from individuals. LLCs are allowed to donate as long as it is the owners of said LLC are also listed, and corporate contributions to political action committees, though, are prohibited. So the PAC is a valuable tool in building a relationship with candidates who recognize the importance of our industry. Donations to candidates are approved by the Ohio Concrete PAC Board, which is comprised of Ohio Concrete members. Candidates who have received support from Ohio Concrete include Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted, Speaker of the House Larry Householder, and State Senate President Larry Obhoff. Last cycle, the PAC distributed more than $70,000 to candidates and candidate organizations. And we donate to candidates not only through donating to events, one-on-one meetings, small receptions, and as you'll see from the picture, this was an opportunity that the industry had to sit down with John Husted to discuss some of our policy goals for the upcoming years. In addition to the PAC, there are many ways to get involved politically. It is incredibly important to build relationships with your state legislators and local officials. Often when I'm sitting down with members of the Ohio House and Senate, they ask about constituents or other Ohio Concrete members they've met at events. These personal relationships are a key element of our government affairs outreach. How can you get to know your representatives? One way is to volunteer for a candidate or attend a candidate's event. Events can be fundraisers or as simple as meet and greet coffees, which candidates oftentimes hold, or elected officials. Many elected officials also hold in district office hours where they'll set up shop either at a local restaurant, a library, something of that nature. And they've I can speak from experience that I know from past officials and elected officials that I've worked with is, when someone takes the time to sit down and talk to them about an issue, it adds extra weight to it. And again, many times these relationships are built through membership in community organizations like the Chamber of Commerce. It's very seldom that someone moves to a new area and decides to run for office. Oftentimes they're longstanding members of the community. They have a built-in base of contacts that they know. So oftentimes, your colleagues today who may have been a fellow business owner could be running for office next year, next week, et cetera. Another great opportunity that we've used in the past is hosting elected officials at Ohio Concrete member facilities. These tours are often about an hour or so and allow your elected representatives to see firsthand the unique aspects of your business. These tours usually include an opportunity for the elected official to meet members of your team and are arranged so that they do not impact your daily operations. This is one type of outreach that I truly do enjoy and enjoy organizing. So please let me know if you'd like more information about the logistics of hosting a site visit. We've done these for everyone from first-time candidates prior to running for office to President Obhoff, who I referenced earlier in the call, who attended a concrete facility in his home county of Medina. And this actually gives us a great opportunity where we can show firsthand how a policy issue is affecting our ability to operate a business in Ohio. And I can say with certainty that we were able to move the needle on a policy issue that was very unique to our industry from that visit with Senator Obhoff, where he was able to see firsthand some of the issues that we were facing because of a regulatory item. And finally, we encourage any Ohio Concrete member who is interested to join us for meetings with elected officials. We've facilitated elected official and Ohio Concrete member meetings not only in Columbus, but in the district. These types of meetings are incredibly important in building connections between legislators and our industry. We've done everything as formal as bringing individuals into the State House offices in Columbus, all the way down to just grabbing a quick cup of coffee or a lunch at a Panera or a Starbucks, where we just get to have an informal conversation with an elected official about the state of the industry, the state of the economy, any kind of issues we might be having. And these types of meetings, every time you spend, and the more time you spend with someone, the better you're going to get to know them. So we try to encourage these whenever possible. So as with site visits, please let me know if you'd like to meet with your state representative or state senator. Tom Norris and I would be happy to facilitate those meetings. And then no matter where you might be in the state, we'd be happy to travel and visit with you and your local member. Next, I'm happy to introduce our special guest today, State Senator Rob McColley. Senator McColley is serving in the Ohio Senate after being appointed in December 2017. The following year, in 2018, he was elected to a full 4-year term. He represents the 1st Senate District, which covers a number of counties in Northwest Ohio. A Napoleon native, Senator McColley graduated from the Ohio State University before receiving his JD from the University of Toledo in 2010. In the legislature, he is the chairman of the Senate Transportation, Commerce, and Workforce Committee. And obviously, he handles a number of issues that are important to our industry and the construction industry as a whole. So we're very happy to have him today. And thank you very much for joining us, Senator.
Happy to be here, Joel.
Great. So I think just to lead things off, I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you, and I'd encourage any of the listeners to please type in their questions, and we'll either to me or to Senator McColley, and we'll be happy to address those. I think the first off, it's a very interesting mix of individuals who populate the 132 members of the House and Senate. So would you mind sharing a little bit about your path to the legislature, and then additionally, just some information about the 1st Senate District?
Sure, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. The General Assembly is a cross-section of Ohio. We have people who own their own insurance agencies. We have realtors. We have attorneys. We have people who are small business owners. We have people from all walks of life who have decided to make the run and join the General Assembly. And it makes us better as a whole to have those different perspectives. We even have medical doctors as well. But my path in particular started when I moved back to Napoleon after graduating law school, and decided to start my career, practice law for a few years, and then got into economic development and was the executive director of the Henry County Community Improvement Corporation for 2 years. And during that time, I realized my state representative was about to be term limited, and I decided to take a run at it, not knowing exactly what I was getting into, but just knew that I had to work hard and knock on doors and meet a lot of voters and let everything else fall where it may. And so I ended up doing that in 2014, ended up winning the election for the House of Representatives, was reelected in 2016. And then, of course, as Joel mentioned, we ended up being appointed to the Senate in 17, and then elected to a full term in 18.
Great. And then, so moving on from the House into the Senate, how did share a little bit about how your district changed, and then some of the challenges of covering that area from as a House member versus a Senate member? Because I know this is an issue that we've talked about quite a bit as far as just the geographic size of your district.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. So generally, each House district has about 120,000 people, and I live in a very rural part of the state. So my House district was 3 counties, and so essentially it was Henry, Putnam, Williams, and part of Fulton County. And I lived in the center of that in Henry County, so I could go 45 minutes to the north, 45 minutes to the south. I could be wherever I wanted to be. Each Senate district is made up of 3 House districts. It perfectly overlays 3 House districts. And so in the case of my Senate district, I now have the House district that comprises Findlay and Hancock County and Kenton and Hardin County, and even goes all the way down to Indian Lake. And then I have part of Allglaze County with Wapakoneta and up the state line with Indiana. And so in essence, if you're familiar with Ohio's geography, it goes, because it is such a population sparse, if you will, area of the state, it takes an awful lot of land area to get 360,000 people that are in a Senate district. So it goes from Indian Lake in Logan County all the way up to the Indiana-Michigan border of Ohio. And it has all or part of 11 counties. And so in that regard, it's a challenge in some respects. Obviously we knew what we were getting into when we went into it, but it's nothing for me to spend anywhere between 5 and 10 hours each week just driving around the district to various events. In fact, this week alone, I've driven down to Logan County twice, which for me is a 2-hour drive one way, and had to do that for several events, and we're happy to do it. But it certainly makes my district a little bit unique from many others in the state.
Okay, great. And then, you kind of sounds like you have to cover a lot of ground. Generally, as you're traveling, what are some of the challenges and opportunities you're seeing in your district as far as, thinking about the state 5, 10, 20 years down the line?
Mm-hmm. So I think the economy is changing so rapidly, and you have many parts of the state, including mine, that are heavily reliant on agriculture. And I'm not sure that's ever going to change based upon the land that we have up in Northwest Ohio, but also heavily reliant on manufacturing. And then you also have parts of the state that are aging at a rapid rate. Ohio in itself is aging faster than the national average, and Northwest Ohio is aging faster than the state average. And so when you look at it, it presents some unique challenges as it concerns particularly workforce development. We have these manufacturing companies who are out here saying, look, it's not a matter of whether we have enough work or whether we have the jobs coming in to be able to fill our capacity. The issue is we don't have enough people who are able to come and work and actually allow us to get that productivity and that production out in a reasonable manner. And so as a result of that, I'm very happy that the state is looking at a number of those issues as far as workforce development is concerned, because that's something that we got to get that figured out before anything else can be figured out as far as large economic growth is concerned, in my opinion, in much of the state. And then in addition to that, we certainly have in Northwest Ohio a good mix of transportation assets. The Turnpike goes through my district. I-75 goes through my district. US 24, which if you're familiar is generally an interstate lookalike, goes through my district, actually goes through my hometown. And so the good thing about it is, from a transportation perspective, there's a lot of stuff when it's traveling east and west. Obviously, it uses the Turnpike, but being at the kind of the bottleneck of Michigan, anything that's coming out of Michigan is also going to come through Northwest Ohio, generally speaking, as well. And so it's really created kind of a cottage industry of distribution centers in Northwest Ohio along either I-75 or the Turnpike that have popped up as central distribution points for distribution across the country, and along with a lot of rail development as it concerns some rail development in Bellevue, I believe, and then also North Baltimore, the CSX intermodal. So it's really a kind of a center point for a lot of these distribution networks, and that's been something that Northwest Ohio has become known for as well. And so, but the challenges, like I said, are trying to keep up that distribution network, obviously, and then also the workforce that's going to be needed to be able to staff these new economic opportunities and to be able to grow the economy up here.
Great. I think next up, and then we've got a couple of questions already from the audience, but I've got one more question I just wanted to be sure to ask you, and wanted to chat about some of the bills that you're currently working on and that you've shepherded through in previous General Assemblies. Can you talk a little bit about some of the major issues you've focused on, and then how you see those issues as they're implemented, putting the state on a better course moving forward?
Yeah, generally speaking, my legislative history has always focused on, in some ways, getting the government out of the way, whether that be a private business or individuals' opportunities to work and things of that nature. So when you look at some of the things I've done recently, occupational licensing oversight was one thing I worked on, where in the state of Ohio, we have over 250 occupational licenses that people are required to have to be able to earn a living. And I thought that was too much, 20% of our workforce approximately. And so we put some provisions in place that will require more regular oversight and actual sunsetting of these occupational licenses without the review and approval of the General Assembly to continue the licenses. I think it's just something that's it's a pendulum swinging in the wrong direction. We need to bring it back to the right size. And then beyond that, we've also worked on Senate Bill 1 for this General Assembly, and we were able to get some of those provisions into the budget, which is a regulatory reform bill. So one thing we were able to find out, as many of you I'm sure know, Ohio is overregulated compared to its peers, particularly its peers in the Midwest. And it's something that is a problem. It's something that we need to address. And Senate President Obhoff and myself and Christina Rogner from Summit County have all kind of tried to take this head on. So Senate Bill 1 has three main provisions. One is an inventory provision where it's requiring all the agencies to come up with an inventory of their regulations. The second one is a 30% regulatory reduction across the board that will need to be accomplished over the next 3 or 4 years. And then the final provision of it is the 1 in, 2 out rule, meaning for if you're unable to make the 30% reduction goal, for every new regulation that you introduce, you must reduce or remove 2 regulations or rules as part of the process. Now, we were able to get some of that in the budget. In the budget, we were able to get the inventory requirement, and we were also able to get the 1 in, 2 out rule. And so you will start seeing, in theory, some regulatory reductions happening at the executive level. The good thing has been that particularly Lieutenant Governor Husted, Governor DeWine certainly has been supportive, but Lieutenant Governor Husted has been completely on board with this. He's been somebody who has taken this as a challenge. He's tasked his Common Sense initiative that he oversees to be aggressive in trying to eliminate these regulations. And so in that respect, he's somebody who I feel is going to take this head on, and somebody who I feel is going to really look at this as an opportunity rather than an area where the legislature is trying to tell the executive branch what it should be doing. And it's been encouraging to have that kind of partnership.
Great. So we've got a couple questions here from the audience, and we've got a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to those. The The first one is, since you've served in both the House and the Senate, could you talk about some of the big differences in those jobs?
It's very different. And obviously in the House, we have 99 members, of which the Republican caucus when I was there was 66, 65, my first General Assembly, 66, the next General Assembly. And in the Senate, we have 33 members, and it's been 24 members for the entire time I have been there. And so when looking at the differences, obviously, a lot of times when you're working in a smaller group, it's easier to get things done. Things just, the dynamics of the group are different. In the Senate, I would say things are much more collegial because of the fact that we have to work with these people. You have to work with everybody. You need to rely on people to be able to get your bills passed. And just even when we talk about bills in our caucuses, in the Senate, it was like a conference, or in the House rather, it was like a conference where you got into a room and there were 66 members, and then there were probably 20, 25 staffers who were also in the room. And it was not very personal. In the Senate, it literally, we all sit around a set of tables and we're all able to look at each other and have discussions. And it works out pretty well because we're able to talk through issues we're able to talk through it openly. We're able to get a better understanding of the issues that are coming through. And then we're also able to have a greater influence over things that are coming through. And the illustration I give is that in a caucus of 65, 60, 66 people, if I was over in the House and I said, I'm going to get me and 3 of my friends and we're going to oppose this issue, well, the speaker might have said, okay, that's fine, vote no, we'll move on. Whereas in the Senate, if I get me and 3 of my friends and I say, look, we're not comfortable with voting on this, we think you should change this, that changes the calculus a lot more. Your vote, by virtue of having less people, ends up counting more. And I think that senators, generally speaking, in my observation, are able to have a little bit more influence over legislation, whether it's coming through their committees or not, as opposed to in the House.
Great. So I think we have time for one more question, and thank you so much for your time today. The final question from the audience is, so thinking as a candidate versus elected official, how much time do you need to spend campaigning? And then in regards to the PAC, how important is it to receive PAC support?
Well, when we're campaigning, obviously over a big district like this, particularly when you're in a rural district. So I cover all or part of 5 media markets. And so that makes obviously running a campaign very expensive. But we also cover 11 counties. So you're spending a ton of time driving back and forth. And so that makes it difficult. But as far as time during any given week, even now when I'm not in campaign mode, I don't need to be on the ballot until 2022. Let's say we're in Columbus Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm spending at least 18, 19, maybe even a little bit more time over those 2 days in Columbus, actually doing official activity. Then I have 5.5 hours round trip to and from Columbus, to and from my home. So that puts us, close to 25 hours. And then around my district, it's probably 5 to 10 hours of driving, just going to official stuff. And then on top of that, probably 5 to 10 hours of events that I have to get to during any given week. And so that puts us pretty close to 40 hours a week just doing official business items. That does not include any festivals, parades, or any other events that we go to on a regular basis virtually every weekend. And so it truly is a full-time job when you add up all the time that we spend on it. And then many of us, like myself, also try and find time to practice law and be a father and a husband. So that certainly adds some complexity to it. So, but during a campaign, especially when you're in a bigger district, the bigger the district, the more expensive it's going to be, the more time and resources you're going to need. And generally speaking, PACs have been helpful to us in being able to marshal the resources to be able to be competitive. And, our Senate is a Republican supermajority, the biggest majority we've had ever. The House is in a strong Republican majority. And that means that you're going to have candidates there who are, for the most part, pro-business, who are for the most part, wanting to keep government out of the way of the small business owner and improve our tax climate and many other things. And so, generally speaking, those tax dollars, particularly from pro-business groups like the Ohio Concrete Association, go to supporting pro-business candidates. They go to supporting candidates that have a track record of being good on the issues of those organizations, and they end up helping us craft good policy on the back end. And so it's very helpful. It's very helpful in the long run. And I've noticed, though, as well, as far as the ability of an organization to be engaged, if you will, the organizations that I think do the best job at being helpful on the policy front are also organizations whose members are active, not necessarily on the fundraising side or anything, but it's organizations whose members take the time to get to know the legislators. So this is separate from any of that fundraising stuff. Organizations who take the time to make their members available, to invite legislators out, to develop a relationship with their legislator. That way we know who we need to call regarding any issues or any policies that come up. Those organizations are held in high regard in the legislature. And so that's kind of a long answer to a short question, but that's the long and short of it.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I'm going to turn it back. Thank you so much for your time and for answering all those questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Tom.
Well, thanks, guys, for providing your time and input for this webinar. To our audience, please look for future webinars by Ohio Concrete. Also, if you have topics that would be of interest to you, likely others will have that interest as well. So please let us know. And as I stated at the beginning of the presentation, a PDF copy of this webinar will be posted on our website within a few days. With that, thank you for participating. Have a great day.